Hey gang, I got this great question today that I thought would be a great topic to cover in a video, and this came from one of our KIY private membership members, and we have this membership that has a lot of content that it's set up in a way that allows me to share a lot of information that I can normally only share with clients. And if we don't have a video on a topic, then the members can email me and say, hey, can you make a video on this topic? So it was Mustafa from Australia who says Betaine HCL was working wonderfully, then slowly stopped working with protein stop being digested. What happened? Possibly bacteria buildup again? So in this video, I want to help you understand what could create a situation like this and steps you can take to improve it. Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving anybody medical advice, and I don't know Mustafa. I don't know his specific situation, so I couldn't possibly be giving him advice because I don't know the exact steps that would work best for him. But even though this was a KIY membership question, it had some topics that I felt would be really good to share with everybody in this video, so I wanted to make a version of this for everyone to see. And when we're looking at this situation where someone's using Betaine HCL capsules to help acidify the stomach, maybe the body is not making enough HCL on its own, or maybe there's some type of overgrowth in the stomach that is alkalizing the HCL that is being produced. In either case, the person doesn't have the ability to acidify their food correctly, which means that they can't break down protein and access all the nutrients in their food. And it's usually going to create a wide variety of symptoms, and those symptoms will vary from person to person. But the tricky thing is that we don't really know how much the body is making HCL. We don't know how much HCL is being produced. So when someone is going to supplement with Betaine HCL capsules because maybe the body is not making enough, they might have to test that out. No, I'm just going to start with 1 per meal and I'm going to keep going up. And most people say that they max out at 5, which makes sense because 5 capsules of HCL, where most of them are usually about 500 milligrams per capsule, somewhere in that area. So the body seems to make about 2,500 milligrams of HCL for a full meal. You know, that's about the average of what most seem to make when they're working correctly. So if someone's going to go up to 5 HCL capsules, that seems to make some sense. I'm not telling you to take 5 HCL capsules, but we hear from a lot of people who say they see good results there. But when someone is doing that, they don't know how much HCL the body may be making on its own as well. Maybe there's an overgrowth there that's really alkalizing things, so the body may be making HCL and then you're putting more HCL in there, but with everything that's being alkalized because of the waste product that like some types of bacteria can put out that might have an overgrowth situation in the stomach, that could be neutralizing it and making it less effective. So it may only be as effective as like 1 capsule or even none for some people where the overgrowth is really significant. So it can be hard to figure out like, hey, this was working great yesterday, but now I'm noticing that it's not working as well, and what is going on exactly, because we don't know how much the body was making before. But it's not a situation where, oh, someone's going to take Betaine HCL capsules, so now the body's going to stop making HCL since it's coming in. It doesn't work like that. It's not like a hormonal thing where somebody might supplement with some type of hormonal thing and then the body will not make as much of that hormone, like a melatonin type situation. HCL is not like that. So that's usually not what's going on. But if something has restricted the body's ability to make whatever amount of HCL it was making before, now the person is experiencing less acid in the stomach because maybe they're using the same dose, but we can't really calculate it by this is the dose I was using and then the dose I use tomorrow is the same, but the response is not the same because we don't know what the body was adding on to whatever we're supplementing with. So if something is restricting the body's ability to make whatever amount of HCL it was making all of a sudden, well, now it's going to be less effective. You know, maybe the body is really stressed. Maybe there's some stress in your life that kind of showed up. And when a person's really stressed, that's going to push them more into that fight or flight sympathetic state where now the body is not in a state where it can produce HCL as effectively. Maybe the person isn't stressed, but maybe the body is stressed. Maybe something is going on that's pushing the body more into that sympathetic state. Or maybe the body was presented with some other type of invader. Some other invader came into the system, a cold or something like that. And now the immune system has to use a lot of zinc to fight off this invader. And now there's less zinc available for the body to use that to make hydrochloric acid. So that zinc is important for that process of producing hydrochloric acid. So if it's being funneled to some other situation that the body is viewing as a priority, now all of a sudden the body is making less HCl. Or if something pushed the blood more on that alkaline side, then the body might be holding on to more CO2 or carbon dioxide to help acidify that blood and balance it out so that oxygen can be used correctly. And if the body's holding on to more CO2, that would make less CO2 available to produce hydrochloric acid. Maybe a person was eating less carbs all of a sudden, or maybe just that week they had less carbs. So then when you're not processing carbohydrates correctly, then you produce less CO2, and that can make that blood lean more on the alkaline side. So you can see there's a variety of different issues going on, but this bacterial invasion that Mustafa was talking about is really a big possibility and a really common one. And I also saw that he said at some point that, celery juice really magnifies his symptoms, where like D-limonene doesn't as much. And D-limonene is an orange peel extract that we often use to help people reduce a bacterial overgrowth in the stomach. And celery juice can be really effective for that as well. But when one of those things is going to magnify symptoms a lot, that's usually a strong sign that that overgrowth is significant. And, D-limonene will magnify symptoms more for some people, and celery juice may be more effective and therefore magnify symptoms more for other people. And think about that. The symptoms get magnified when the die-off is magnified. A lot of the symptoms that we experience are not from the actual bacteria. It's from the waste and stuff that they put off. It's this byproduct that they put out. But when you kill them off, they kind of bust open and then all that stuff comes out at once. So the symptoms that would come from that stuff coming out would really be magnified when you kill off a lot at once. So the fact that celery juice really magnifies a symptom makes me kind of think that the overgrowth is significant. And so when that's the case, someone can take steps to reduce that, and then a lot of these symptoms will start to reduce. But a lot of these overgrowth issues can kind of be in cycles a little bit for one reason or another, where it'll be easier to keep them under control, and then they really kind of multiply and replicate, and then they're a lot more problematic. And, maybe the body was able to keep it mostly in check. Once you took some steps to kind of bring it down a few notches, it was easier for the body to keep that overgrowth in check. But then maybe something came up that was occupying the body that needed to be handled, some other invader or something like that. And now this overgrowth is not being kept in check, and it has a lot easier way to expand and really be problematic during that time period. And when we're thinking about an overgrowth, we also have to understand that sometimes this bacteria can be feeding down into the stomach from other locations. Someone could have some type of infection in a tooth or in some type of pocket in their mouth where maybe a tooth was pulled or some kind of root canal that has gone bad and there's an infection in there and the person doesn't know it. I had this going on at one point. And a person can also have a sinus infection where there's a sinus infection going on and they're kind of hiding behind all these biofilms and they're thriving in the sinuses, but you might not have a lot of symptoms. I had a significant sinus overgrowth, but I didn't have a lot of symptoms, but that overgrowth was constantly feeding down into my stomach. So I would take steps to wipe out all this bacteria. I would feel a whole lot better, but then like days, weeks, or months later, it would all come back because it was constantly feeding down from my sinuses. So it wasn't until I took care of that sinus infection that my problems really got a whole lot better because it wasn't constantly being replenished every time that I wiped it out. So this is another possibility that could be going on with a person who sees improvement with HCl, but then all of a sudden it might not be working as well. We also want to think about the type of foods that a person is eating. To break down protein, the body needs more HCl. So a person might not be eating as much protein because they feel lousy when they eat it. But then as they start to use HCl and really acidify their food, they feel better. So they start to increase that protein, but now they don't have enough acid to digest all of that. So then it seems like it's more problematic. We also want to think about that the type of protein could be a factor. White meat, like white meat chicken or even eggs, are a whole lot easier to break down than like a steak or, lamb or something kind of dark meat thing that is harder for the body to break down. So we might have to look at the types of foods that we're eating or the amount of proteins to really get an idea of what's going on. And for one reason or another, the body may have had fewer minerals available. Maybe some minerals needed to be used for something else, or maybe the person was bringing in less chloride that week. We get chloride from the salt that we consume, or sea salt or mine salt. And that's really important when it comes to making hydrochloric acid. So if there's not as much available, the body would be making less in that circumstance as well. But you can see there's a wide variety of issues that could create this problem, right? It's not just going to be an easy, I'm taking this number of capsules, so I should have this exact response every time. It's just not going to work that way. You have to kind of look through this puzzle, and the arc in which you're looking at your progress should be over weeks or months, not over days. You really want to look at a longer arc because the body might have these cycles in its ability to handle certain things. Your stress in your life may be affecting things. So you want to look at that arc a little longer to really view it as like, everything is just falling apart and this doesn't work for me anymore. It's not that HCL wouldn't work anymore. HCL is just going to acidify your stomach as if you were making your own HCL. So that's not really going to change, but you can see that there's a lot of other factors that really can affect how effective the HCL will be, and that adjustment is really going to adjust your experience and the amount of symptoms that you're having. So I hope that helps, and if you're new to this channel and you don't know how to reduce any type of overgrowth that might be going on in the stomach, you can jump over right now and check out our video on how to wipe out bad bacteria in the stomach. I can't wait to hear about your results.